Hello everyone, this is CJ with Cycletron. I just did a video about how Harley Davidson has screwed their dealers this year by cutting production, cutting models, and delaying the release of the 2021 models. But based on your feedback, which caused me to recall some of my own experience, I thought it was only fair to discuss how some dealers screw their customers, or at least try to screw their customers. Unfortunately, I have first-hand experience with this. At the end of 2018, I was looking to buy a new Street Glide Special. So I called around to various Harley dealers. None of them would give me any pricing over the phone. Couldn't get any information off their websites. So I ended up going into a dealer near me and told them I was already familiar with the bike. I didn't need to test ride it. So they sat down right away and wanted to talk numbers. I had a trade. I knew I had a little bit of equity in the trade, so I owed more than it was worth, it was worth more than I owed on it, and knew the price of the Street Glide Special, at least MSRP off the Harley website. I knew they were going to try and get me with some fees and so on. So right off the bat, the salesman hits me with this, what's called a 4-square close worksheet. Last time I saw one of these things was back in the 80s when I was trying to buy a car from this shady car dealer. But you can see how it's divided up. There's one square for your trade, price of the new bike, how much down payment you're going to put down, and then your monthly payment. So the first few blocks are for show, really. And this is an example that comes from the Consumer Reports website. I didn't keep my worksheet when I ended up leaving the dealership when I was trying to do a deal on the Street Glide Special, but this gives you an idea how this thing works. So they'll put down the value of your trade, and then assume you don't owe any money. So in this case, you would net out $3,000 for trading in your Camry. The price of the new vehicle you're looking at is $25,500, a $4,000 down payment, and then they focus on the monthly payment. They put $520 a month and basically say if that fits in with your budget, would you go ahead and buy the bike and initial here? It's kind of a deal. So just looking at some rough numbers, the equity side of things would be the $3,000 and the $4,000 down payment, so $7,000. So we're looking at a net purchase price of $18,500. Well, they don't say what the term of the payments is. Is it 36 months? Is it 48 months? Let's say it's 48 months. Just do some quick mental math. Say 50 months to make it easy, times 500 a month would be 25,000. So we'll end up paying 25,000 for an $18,000 vehicle. That's well in excess of even what the highest interest rates would be. So they're really padding the sale into the monthly payment, and what they're showing for your trade is just buried. So instead, what I like to do is if I get hit with a 4-square deal like this, I'll flip it over. But this will give you an example what I experienced in 2018 at my local Harley dealership. But you can go to NADA, and this gives you a range of suggested retail, which is a big range, $8,500 to $14,400. Obviously, they're not going to give me retail for my trade. So I may look at Kelley Blue Book. It shows a trade value of around $7,500. So let's be really conservative and say I want to get at least $6,500 for my trade. Since I owe, well, let's say $7,500. I think is fair. So since I owe $6,500, that'd be $1,000 credit to me. And let's say I'm looking at a 2020 Street Glide Special. It's pretty close to the same price as the 2018 that I was looking at, or 2019 I was looking at in 2018. So the price of the bike's around $27,000. They're going to try and hit you with full freight, setup, documentation fee, and they're not going to try and discount their bike at all. So let's just say they're holding strong and they want $28,500 for their bike. So if I flip the sheet over, I just look at what the net is. So if I've got $1,000 trade value net, $2,000 down payment, and a $28,500 purchase price of the bike, that leaves me with $25,500 that I'm going to finance. And at 60 months at 4% interest, that should be around $469 a month. And you can go to these websites and you can have it run on your smartphone, or just run it with ballpark numbers and write it down on a sheet of paper before you get to the dealership, so you have a good idea what you're looking at. And here's another example. I'll show you what your payments are going to be. Instead, you're going to get a dealer that's running the Foursquare scam on you, something like this. The whole idea is just to completely confuse you and to ultimately focus just on the monthly payments. So in my case, they show me netting $2,000 for my trade, selling their bike for $29,000. I think I had some accessories plus the fees, and an additional $2,000 deposit. But then I look at the monthly payment block of the Foursquare closing form, and they showed $540 a month payment for 72 months. Well, 540 times 72 plus the $2,000 for my trade plus the $2,000 for my down payment would mean I'd pay $43,000 for a $29,000 bike. I mean, I couldn't believe it that they pulled this on me. I mean, I'm in my 50s. Obviously, this isn't the first vehicle I've ever purchased. I mean, I told them I've purchased at least a dozen motorcycles and a few dozen cars in my time. And they just said, well, you know, that's how we start with everybody. We start high and then work from there. And I told them, you know, that anybody like that I wasn't going to do business with. It just, you know, makes me think of my oldest kids. They're in their early 20s. I can't imagine them trying to go to a car dealer or a motorcycle dealer without assistance and getting gamed like this on a Foursquare close. You know, I was thinking too at the time, you know, it was so outrageous what they were doing. You know, how could Harley Davidson allow a dealer to operate like this? And then it dawned on me is that Harley Davidson doesn't care as long as these people are selling bikes. And you know, 2/3 of every motorcycle sold at a Harley Davidson dealership is financed. And I think it's really predatory sales practice, and they also have very predatory financing, in my opinion. I'll get to that other topic here in a moment, but a lot of times if you're going in to look at a motorcycle, you obviously have to give them your driver's license and a copy of your insurance card. And I've heard from many people that they've had their credit checked while they were out on the test ride without their knowledge. And you know, I don't think it's so much to figure out if you can buy a motorcycle. They'll pretty much figure out a way to get you financed. I think it's a way to identify people with problem credit so that they could focus on the monthly payments. It's quite a racket. But unfortunately, I think there's going to be more of these shady dealers around than less. I mean, Harley's trying to go from about 700 dealerships down to 600 here in the next year or so. And at the third quarter earnings call last week, the CEO of Harley Davidson said that, well, yeah, they're closing a few dealerships, but most of the ones that are closing are owned by people that own only 1 or 2 stores. So in other words, no big deal. They're clearly favoring the mega dealers with high volume, and I think in many cases high pressure or predatory sales tactics. But you know, I still have a vivid memory of that whole experience. I mean, I immediately left when I realized they were going to try and get me to pay $43,000 for a $29,000 motorcycle, and they had 2 or 3 of their people, their salesmen and sales managers, chase me out into the parking lot trying to get me back in to resume, quote, negotiations. I told them it's too outrageous for me to give them the time of day. Another thing that's frustrating is with my Street Glide Special as an example, it comes with subpar rear shocks, in my opinion. You know, I often go 2 up, and I like to ride it a little bit in sporty fashion on some of the twisties near my home. It's not a sport bike, but I do like to get some spirited riding in on occasion. So I went back to the dealer, and I didn't buy from that scammy dealer. I found one out further out from the metro area that was very reasonable. But about a year later, I purchased some Russ Wernemont design shocks, rear shocks for my Street Glide Special, the 13-inch shocks. And I went back to the dealership where I'd spent like 29 grand buying my Street Glide Special, and asked them to install these shocks for me. Obviously, they're going to charge. I mean, didn't expect they'd do it for free, but they told me that no, they weren't allowed to put on any components on a motorcycle that wasn't purchased through the dealership, and in all likelihood through Harley Davidson's supply chain. The flip side of this, I mean, well, so going back to the shocks, I ended up going to a dealer, a metric dealer that I have a relationship with. I've also bought many bikes from them, and it was January, so they were kind of slow here in the Midwest, and they put them on for me. I mean, why couldn't the Harley dealer do that? Doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But the flip side of this is that people have had components or accessories put on their motorcycle or Harley Davidson motorcycle, which ended up voiding the factory warranty, and the dealer put the parts on and didn't tell them that that was going to happen. So, I just it's quite a squeeze between the predatory sales practices, on the financing, and with their aftermarket prices are high to begin with, and they won't put it on unless you buy those parts from them in the first place. And then in some cases you may be looking at getting your warranty voided if you're not real careful. So please let me know your thoughts. Appreciate it if you would like and subscribe, and leave any comments down below. Thank you.